So I'm going to begin with our first speaker, and I'd like to welcome Nora Abou-Absi, who I think many of you know, from the Canadian Arab Friendship Association. Nora.
Thank you, Peggy. I'm not quite as coordinated as you. I can't use a hand for a mic, so I'm going to take advantage of this stand. I think Beth asked me to make an announcement. There are people from the Red Cross collecting some donations here. Can you hear me back there? Do I have to yell? We're okay? They're collecting some donations, so please feel free to be generous. It's going for a very, very good cause right now. It's all going towards Lebanon. So I guess they're going around here with it. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today. I mean, with the Capital X in town and the Grand Prix and Taste of Edmonton, there's a lot more fun things to be doing than being here. But it does my heart good to see that there are concerned Canadians who worry about what's outside of our beautiful city and worry about what's happening with the innocent people of Lebanon. And I'd also like to thank our organizers, ECOR, for their hard work and effort. Good job, guys. It's been a hard time. I know Peggy's been running around like a chicken with her head cut off, and we do appreciate that. It's also nice to see so many faces. Yeah, give them a good hand. Another important thing is it's so nice to see so many faces that aren't necessarily of Arabic origin. What that means is that this has gone from being a Lebanese cause, an Arab cause, or a Muslim cause, to being a humanitarian cause, something that is important for all of us, no matter what race, color, creed, or religion we are. You know, today was really hard. When I sat down to write my notes, as you see I hold them, I'm really bad for memory. I had a hard time putting on paper what I felt needed to be talked about. I mean, this is a very personal issue to me. Lebanon is my heritage country, and Canada is my home. And I just came back from Lebanon 10 days before all this began. It was the first time I got to see the Lebanon my mom used to tell me about. The beautiful vistas, the amazing history, and the resilient and friendly people. It was the paradise she told me about. Unfortunately, now my paradise has been ruined. I have hundreds of hours of video that shows what Lebanon is now at its most pristine in 30 years. And now my pristine Lebanon is ruined. This is so personal for me that I don't know if my fellow Canadians could understand the utter emotional devastation myself and others felt at seeing this beautiful country blasted into ruins in the space of 2 weeks, not even. And I felt a certain responsibility and guilt, both to my country Canada and to my beautiful Lebanon. I make the mistake, and I do say mistake, of reading the newspapers in the city, hoping to see if there are people who understand what's going on in Lebanon, and it frightens me. Letters to the editor saying things like, it's Hezbollah's fault, just return the 2 soldiers and everything will be okay. Or, how could anyone defend the terrorist group Hezbollah? You know, after my speech at the rally, the last rally at the legislature, I received mail from all over Alberta blaming everything from the Quran to my hate-mongering culture for what's happening in Lebanon and to the Palestinians and to the Iraqis. So here's the guilt I feel. I feel guilty for not being able to open the eyes of every one of my fellow Canadians on what's going on in the Middle East. What am I doing wrong that I can't seem to convince everyone that, told you I have a bad memory. Why can't I convince everyone that the issues that are there concern us here? This isn't about 2 soldiers and a terrorist group. And here's my responsibility to keep on talking and try and open the eyes and hearts of my fellow Canadians to what's going on and how we are affecting and being affected by the situation there. So here goes. Let's start at home. I constantly refer to Canada as the big teddy bear of the world. We are the peacemakers, the peacekeepers, and the country that all countries, with the exception of 2, want to try and be like. We have always been on the side of human, helping people regardless of policies, regardless of our neighbors' foreign policies or anybody else. That changed at the last election. We now toe partisan lines, but not Canadian partisan lines, but rather that of the USA and subsequently that of Israel. And yeesh, I said the I word, so now I have to say the disclaimer. Okay, I am not anti-Semitic. I have nothing personal against the Israeli public, but I am against what the Israeli government is doing to the Palestinian and to the Lebanese. Don't be afraid of being labeled anti-Semitic if you don't believe in a government's policy. Don't be afraid of those two words. But let's get back to our government. From the get-go, it was very obvious that Stephen Harper was in bed without a condom with the Bush administration. And especially when it came to the Palestinian and Israeli issues. The lack of response on the part of the Canadian government in the continuing brutal annihilation of people in Gaza, people in Lebanon, and of people in Iraq are testimony to that. Right. Then, in his famous words about the devastation in Lebanon, Israel has a right to defend its borders. I quote, "Measured responses by Israel." Let that sink in for a minute, folks. Describe to me what you think measured response is. When my son, my little 8-year-old, writes on the wall in a permanent marker, my measured response, I admit I yell a bit, I do yell. I admit I may get a little mad, but then I make him clean up the mess. I certainly don't sledgehammer my wall. When my neighbor lets his dog do his business on my lawn, I admit I yell. Yes, everybody who knows me knows I yell. But I don't bomb my neighbor's dog or house and shoot his dog. Mr. Harper, you gave permission for Israel to sledgehammer the wall, bomb the neighbor, shoot the dog, and then expect the Lebanese to clean up the mess. That, sir, is not a measured Canadian response to the problem. Last week, when we met with Minister Stockwell Day, of course, the issue of getting Canadians out of Lebanon was in the forefront as well as Mr. Harper's condoning of what Israel was doing in Lebanon came up. What Mr. Harper's answer was? Israel has the right to defend its borders and that the UN resolution recognizing the state of Israel must be upheld. And I just kind of looked at this man like, did you just fall off the turnip truck? For crying out loud, there are over 700 resolutions against what Israel and the U.S. have done to the Palestinians, to the Iraqis, and to the Lebanese over the last 20 years. Let's uphold those resolutions for a change. He went on to say that the Israelis are surrounded by hostile nations. That may have been true 50 years ago, but now, well, let's see. Both Jordan and Egypt have peace agreements with them and trade agreements. Lebanon and Syria, they do not. But Israel is also the one nation in the Middle East that has nuclear capabilities. It's got the largest and most powerful military in the area. Does that sound like a helpless nation to you? And then, today, I was listening to Condoleezza Rice. Now, she's just Bush's lapdog. Don't get mad at her. Yeah, I know it was a mistake to listen to her, but unfortunately, she's part and parcel with what's going on. She said, there's no going back now, and a new Middle East is being born. What does she mean by that? Do you think that the U.S. vision of the Middle East reflects what the Canadians feel the Middle East should be? Do you think that the Middle East is going to be rebuilt in the image of George Bush's dream?
Never!
Where the value of a human life is a barrel of oil, just like Iraq?
Or Alberta.
Do you think that this means that Lebanon has to lose its infrastructure, its sovereignty, and its citizens to fulfill this new Middle East policy and prophecy?
No!
We need to ask ourselves these tough questions, and then we need to communicate what we feel to our government. So, back to my responsibility. I quickly realized that my responsibility to my fellow Canadians is not to change your mind. I can't convince you to follow my ethics or my standards or my belief in what should happen in Lebanon, Palestine, or Iraq. What I can do is remind you of the standards of the foreign policy and ethics that Canada as a nation has lived by for years, and show you the devastations and the death in my beautiful, beautiful, sad Lebanon. And I hope that by doing this, that you can send the message to Ottawa and to Harper that he is not speaking for Canadians, and that we will not align ourselves with our neighbors to the south for the sake of alignment. And Canada may not always take the path of the US, but rather the path of dignity and compassion for human beings across the Middle East and across the world. And I thank you.